Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and today I'm very excited to have with me a fellow data head that is helping many of you already around the world, but he is somebody that I've been looking forward to getting on this show for a really long time. For those of you who don't know him, he was a collegiate golfer. He played professionally, played in the U.S. Open, and has helped golfers since then, particularly around the course management, the founder of Decade Golf, Scott Fawcett. Scott, excited to have you on, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy these conversations. It's funny because I feel like I say the same thing a lot, but I always enjoy them. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, well, it's fun to, I think for everyone listening, that we work with obviously they're fitness nerds. So they are always looking for every edge golf-wise. Obviously, there's guys we work with are physical, and they're looking at how can they gain distance and more mobility, not hurt, all that sort of stuff. But I think the cool thing to have you on is like to actually have the conversation of like, how much does distance actually matter? And then, we can get into all the details from there. But before we do that, just in case anyone hasn't heard of Decade, like what is Decade Golf? Like, how did you get into this? And let's give people just a quick overview, and then we'll dive into the fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you. I've always been a data guy, kind of a math nerd. I was in the advanced programs through high school and everything. And then I went to college, and interestingly, like just because of the way that I transferred, I'm not a guy that went to college to get multiple degrees, but because of the way I transferred from school to school, I wound up with so many hours I would have actively had to try to not get degrees while I was finishing up my playing in 4 years at Texas A&M. And played professionally, like you say, for 5 years. And, in hindsight, I actually do believe right around the time I was starting to figure it out, and by figured out, I mean like decade type stuff,
Yeah.
was when 9/11 happened. We had a bunch of money stolen on this Pro Tour Hawaii 2001. And I missed by one at second stage of Q school. And I was just like, man, I'm smoked.
Yeah.
And, luckily for me, it was right when Texas was deregulating its electricity market in 2002. So I started an electricity company. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? You've been playing professional golf for 6 years and don't know
Makes
anything
sense.
about electricity. But the reason I bring that up is because once I started making a little bit of money, I started playing a lot of poker. So this is 2002 through, let's call it 2005. Around underground games, and I actually met Chris Como, Tiger's instructor, DeChambeau, Xander's now. He and I met playing in an underground poker game in
That's awesome.
2005. And it's just funny looking back at it because then we started just doing all these different poker analyses. Analyses, is that even a word? Is that right? Analysis?
Analyses?
It just
Analysi? I don't
felt
know.
weird.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
I'm a math guy, not an English guy. So I started playing a lot. Obviously, I started working on my game with him. It's the first time I learned anything about modern ball flight laws. And the human body is just so amazing. Like, once you tell it the right thing to do, like, we're not pointing the club face left of the target and swinging right. That's how you're going to hit a snap hook.
Yeah.
Once you tell it the right thing to do, the human body is really good at doing it. So I was kind of the first good player that Como worked with. And in 2008, I was like, I'm playing better now as a 35-year-old amateur than I was as a 25-year-old playing professional. So I entered Q school on a bet. Wound up getting through all 4 stages.
No way.
Got a Corn Ferry card. Obviously, that's a little bit harder to do with a full-time job than just going to Q school. So that was kind of a wasted 3 or 4 years. But in that period, in 2010, was when they first released strokes gained putting. And I was like, okay, my scoring average is 71. I need to get it to 69.5. Where am I going to find those 1.5 shots? So it wasn't strokes gained that I was doing, but I was like, I can get this much better here and this much better here, and I think it'll relate to this. Like, am I kidding myself, or is there room for me to do this? And then when they actually released strokes gained putting in 2010, I wrote a thread for an online poker forum called "Is Drive for Show, Putt for Dough Really True?" And in it, you can see a whole bunch of really bad math and logic because we were trying to, me and the other guys in the thread, figure some stuff out. And it's just so interesting because then in 2013, when they released the full strokes gained catalog that Mark Brody and the PGA Tour created, I just was like, dude, if I have the size of shot patterns from TrackMan with Como, and I know how many strokes it takes to hole out, like, I don't see why we can't like do some serious work on strategy and course management here. And this is where it's different. Like, Mark Brody is an academic, and I don't say that in a pejorative way like most people typically do, but he was hired to make something for statistics.
Yeah.
I, as a player, was like, we can actually learn to score from this. And obviously, so much of Decade is about expectation management, and the data is what drives all of that. And so did a ton of work 2013, early 14, and then I had a cortisone shot in my right elbow when it was finally time to put all this in play, which wound up being the doctor paralyzed my right arm, which obviously came back to life, yay me. But it was really frustrating because I'd literally done a ton of work. Well, Zalatoris was just a 17-year-old kid at my home course, who, if you rewind the clock back, was 9 when I had Corn Ferry status.
Wow.
And so he was the 9 to 12-year-old bouncing around with me at the club.
Yeah.
Annoying the shit out of me technically, but he's a nice kid. So I would play chipping and putting games and play with him and whatever. And so I just called him, was like, let me caddy for you next week. I can't play now.
Yeah.
And he wound up winning the Texas Amateur by 4, which was his first win other than a high school golf tournament. Went and caddied for him when he won the U.S. Junior. And then the luckiest thing ever, that Jason Enlow, the SMU coach at the time, told me he had this kid named Bryson DeChambeau who is just a world beater, but he can't get him to stop firing at flags. Yeah. Can you come teach it to him? Which I did then in February of 2015. Mm-hmm. And he wins the NCAAs and U.S. Amateur right after that. And, apparently next thing you know, I'm a strategy expert. I literally laughed like my electricity company. I was planning on going back and playing golf 6 months later, and I was just like, well, this is really easy. Yeah. I'm going to just make money.
That's awesome.
And the same thing with this golf. Like, I've literally, if I hadn't got that cortisone shot, I would have done nothing with this at all. I mean, it would have been like I created something for me in my game, and that's it. And so it's just so interesting how life works out of just, do something good, try to do as good of a job as you can, and then sit back and see what the results come. And it takes just a ton of luck to just be in the right place at the right time, which I was very fortunate to be.
Talk about the greatest cortisone shot of all time. Jeez.
I mean, it was an extremely valuable paralyzation of my right arm. I wouldn't say to go out and try to get your arm paralyzed, but one thing that was cool about it is my arm was just stuck like this for like 3 days. Oh, and then I was cooking some dinner, and all of a sudden my arm over like 30 seconds just slowly released. And it was the wildest thing. Like, I was doing nothing. I'm just watching my arm as it just drops, and I'm feeling nothing.
Just out of body.
And all of a sudden it's just like instantly kind of back to life. I'm like, wow,
well, that's cool.
That was really wild.
That's hilarious. So what? I have to ask, with Bryson, we'll use that. What was, because this obviously will lead into what decade is, and obviously how it'll help everyone listening. But how did you go through that analysis with him? Did you just collect a bunch of data that he had already had? How did you approach that?
I mean, again, at that level, we've modified it since for average players. Mm-hmm. But what I was creating was, I mean, again, I was a +6 at the time. I had just quit playing professional golf. I'm pretty good, and I really just wanted to win the U.S. Mid-Am. So I was just treating the PGA Tour ShotLink data as though it was my own.
Right.
And so if I know, again, if I can just take a shot pattern and start moving it around at different targets on a green, and I can start figuring out where's the optimal place to center my shot pattern. Because if there's any one thing that drives me crazy that a hater of mine says to me is like, isn't this all common sense? I'm like, well, I mean, kind of, after I told it to you, yeah, but nobody falls out of the womb knowing this. But more importantly, if a pin is 4 yards from the left edge of the green and we're 150 and the green is 22 yards wide, it's not just either at it or middle of the green here. There's an inflection point somewhere between those two, center of the green and at the pin, that's the optimal target. And quite often, middle of the green is less optimal, suboptimal, compared to just aiming at the flag. And so it's just not a tidy answer. And the reason that is because golf is the only sport in the world that's not played on a uniform field of competition. Right. It's every hole is different. Whereas if I'm playing basketball last night and I told you I was at the top of the key and the guard switched on me, and you can kind of tell what happened. But if I tell you I was 147 in the middle of one fairway, should I fire at the flag? You're like, well, I'm going to need a lot more information than that. And so it really, I feel salesy when I say this, but you really do just have to learn the process in order to pick these optimal targets. And, just to put a bow on that last idea, these kids are just so good that they feel like they can hit any shot. Mm-hmm. And, they can, just not often enough to make it be the optimal play. It's like hitting on 18 in blackjack. I'm pretty sure there's a 23% chance you won't bust, and there's still a 30% chance you won't lose the hand. So you hit on 18, there's basically a 1 in 4 chance you're not going to bust. The table's going to go crazy, and then there's still a 30% chance you're going to lose the hand. Yeah. And it's like, that's the point of golf and strategy and course management, is you have to make the optimal decision, not just because you can hit a shot. That does not mean that it is these shots. So again, circling back to these kids are so good They feel like they can do anything with any shot, and they just can't do it often enough in order for it to be the correct play. So again, you just have to kind of accept golf because it's the largest sport and the largest outdoor sport played with the ball in the air the longest. If there's any wind whatsoever, you simply can't just feel like you've got perfect control of your shot pattern. I mean, on the PGA Tour, a 200-yard par 3 is going to play with a shot pattern that's over 40 yards wide and 40 yards deep pretty consistently. And it's like, once you see these
and the 15
images,
handicap who gets pissed off when they leave it 20 feet outside the hole.
yeah, I mean, it's literally insane. I can't remember that. I think the stat is from 150, a tour player has a better chance of hitting it outside 40 feet than inside 10 feet.
Wow.
I mean, from 150, that's a wedge for these guys.
Yeah,
There's a better chance to hit it outside of 150 than hit it close enough that I consider it materially important. Right. I'd rather you be 15 feet than 20 feet, but I really don't care. Those 5 feet are a tenth of a shot.
Right.
But the difference in 3 feet and 8 feet is half a shot. So all 5 feet aren't the same, and if there's a better chance I'm going to hit it outside of 40 feet than inside 10 feet, and from outside, once you're outside 10 feet, like it almost doesn't matter. You're probably going to two-putt it.
Yeah.
Like it's so wild when you see these numbers, but that's where, when you circle back to what I'm sure we'll talk about is the Tiger 5 mistakes.
Yeah.
But they all the information leads to the fact it's easier to intentionally not make bogey than it is to intentionally make a birdie. And so we are really playing this game solely focusing on avoiding bogeys. I mean, and you just have to kind of trust that if it's your week, you're going to have a little bit of variance within your shot pattern that hits a few more shots close than any other week. You're going to make a couple of extra putts from outside 15 feet. But more importantly, you're not going to finish each round and be like, God, if I just hadn't bogeyed that par 5 or 3-putted from 20 feet for double, I would have shot X. Those are the ones we can intentionally avoid.
Right.
And I say intentionally avoid. I also say that with a grain of salt. We can attempt to intentionally avoid it.
We can have the intent of avoiding those.
Yeah.
So now let's jump. You brought up the Tiger 5. Let's jump to what those are, where those come from, and how early on in the process were those? Did you kind of come up with those?
So it's really interesting. Honestly, Steve Jobs has a saying, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And it really is so interesting how I did all of this. I mean, again, I wrote over 500 million cells of Excel code, like solving these problems. Yeah. And so I had these core ideas: stop trying to make birdies, stop trying to make putts, winning requires luck. But my old roommate that I lived with for a couple of years is a guy named Lance Bennett, who is actually Tiger's caddy now. And caddies for Michael Torbjornsen, if I've pronounced that correctly, when Tiger's not playing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He told me, this has to be 7 years ago now, maybe 8 years ago. He's like, this really reminds me of the things that I understand Tiger used to track. And it's how many bogeys on par 5s, doubles, 3 putts. Tiger tracked bogey with 9-iron or less, which just to quantify the data in shot length. Old clubs, I figured Tiger probably hit a 9-iron about 150. Yeah. So I turned that into bogey inside 150, and then Tiger tracked blown easy saves, which is subjective to his opinion. So I turned that into 2 chips. Mm-hmm. And Tiger was trying to have 6 or fewer of those per week to win on the PGA Tour. And so, excuse me, Lance told me that, but I didn't want to get Lance in trouble. I didn't know if that was like public information. Yeah. But like 2 years later, Kevin Chappell's caddy told me the same thing, and I heard it from someone else. And so then finally, I'm like, okay, screw it. This is public knowledge. I'm just going to blast this everywhere. And it's funny because you see like Smiley Kaufman talked about it. This player told me about this one time. It wasn't a player, Smiley. It was me at TPC San Antonio. Yeah. Anytime you hear that referenced, it's definitely me. I'm not trying to take credit for anything, but like those are the things Tiger was actively just trying to avoid. And the key to it is it's not no double bogeys on par, or double bogeys. It's not too many. So if Tiger was trying to have 6 of those per tournament, that's 1.5 per round of what feels like relatively silly mistakes. So for me as a mental midget, I used to, if I bogeyed a par 5, I would just check out for 30 minutes in a fit of rage. Right. And now when I have one, I'm like, okay, well, there's one. So, I just played Champions Tour qualifying last fall. I finished 8th at first stage and then missed getting status by 3 shots at final stage. And over the 8 rounds, I had like a 71 scoring average, and I had 20 of those mistakes. So 2.5 per round. I mean, it's not none. Yeah. Like It happens relatively often. And again, that's playing to plus 5-ish golf.
Yeah.
If you're a scratch, even like 5 or 6 of those per round is not unusual. It's funny. Yesterday, the guy that won the NCAA individual championship, Michael Lasasso, for Ole Miss, is a
Known
decade
him.
member. He's entered 111 rounds.
Known Mike. We
And so-
trained Michael since he was 13 or 12.
What's
Yeah.
that? Oh, you have?
Oh yeah, you have no Michael.
You know, it's funny. Is
He's a
I
Raleigh
sent Coach Malloy a text last night. I was like, "Congratulations! Not many coaches have had 2 NCAA champions in that sort of a time frame."
Yeah.
Tell Michael I said congratulations, and it's time to stop skipping leg day. That's literally what I texted him.
That's
That dude
appropriate.
is-
That's
I
appro-
literally texted my college sales director. I was like, "Holy shit, this dude is jacked." I mean, it's just amazing watching some of these kids walk around, and it's so funny when the old timers want to be like, "We could compete." It's like you were doughy. You couldn't even
game.
carry these dudes' bag. Like
It's a different game.
people think when I make that statement, I'm saying, sure, Jack, Johnny Miller, Crenshaw, I mean, Watson, those guys would be great players now. But anyone outside of about the top 30 back then would not have stood a chance on the modern PGA Tour at all whatsoever. Anywho, gosh dang it. Oh, circling back to him, that guy, for 111 rounds he's entered in the app, he's averaging almost 2 Tiger 5 mistakes per round, which is off the charts good.
Yeah.
But it's like also it's just not none. And so one of the main things, I'm a little too blunt. It serves me well sometimes in life and doesn't serve me well. But I just like telling the truth and not trying to use flowery language. Like, you're going to do a lot of dumb stuff every single day, and we cannot treat these problems like anomalies. Yeah. It's not surprising when you bogey a par 5. Does it suck? Well, yeah, it sucks, but it's also not surprising. Yeah. And so if you want to act surprised and get pissed off every single time you do one of those Tiger 5 mistakes, you are going to continue turning your 70th percentile round into 3 shots higher. Yeah. I mean, we've all got a bell curve of about 10 shots. So if I go play, I'm probably going to shoot between 65 and 75 right now.
Yeah.
I can take my 72s and make them 75s by getting mad, or I can take my 72 and grind out a 71 or 2, which by definition lowers my scoring average. So I do believe that if you think about a bell curve of scores, I do like to think that the worst 25 or 30% of your rounds, once you understand decade, those just go away. So if instead of being a bell curve, it should just kind of go and then stop.
Right.
And personally, that's pretty much what I do. I mean, again, I'm not good enough to go deep. I don't play enough golf or whatever. I shoot more 70s and 71s than you can possibly imagine, but I do sprinkle in a 63 to 66 every so often.
Yeah.
And again, it's about not making your average rounds worse than they need to be. Your good rounds really shouldn't change too much. They'll change because you understand how to putt better, because you understand speed control being more important. You're hitting it further. Back to your original question of distance, I've said this a number of times, but I think that it's comical that we needed as much data as we needed to prove that hitting the ball far is a good idea. Like, of any of the data that I think is funny, because I hit the ball past everyone. I'm 6'2", 225. I mean, I'm a big guy that hit the ball far out of just being strong.
Yeah.
And even when the longer drivers and everything came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was just like, I already hit it past everyone. I don't need to hit it longer. It's like, well, another 20 yards is probably
Not going to hurt. Yeah.
even better.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how we just never saw that at all.
So what is the actual distance? Because I have this argument with I'm scratch, so I'm not at your level, but my buddies are all like 5s to 7s. So whenever we go play, I always have to give them strokes, and depending the tees we play, But the distance seems to be so highly valued in course ratings, and that obviously impacts strokes I got to give out. How is that? I mean, have you looked at like how much it's valued in the handicap system relative to what it actually does?
I have no clue how handicaps even work. I couldn't care less. I just know everyone I play at my home course in our hammer game gets a shot on every hole but the par 3s.
Well, like so I think the analogy would be like I'll just use my course. It's a stroke and a half harder from the tips, but it's only 300 yards longer. Maybe 400 yards.
It probably brings hazards more in play. Like, most courses are designed in certain ways to where the most correlated things to score are greens and regulation and how far do you hit it. Like, it's pretty linear with you hit it further, you shoot lower.
Yeah.
And again, it's just funny because Lou has done a number of decent studies with the data that he gets. And we all think, man, well, if I try to hit it further, I'm going to hit it more crooked. And it's like, actually, you kind of get out of your own way.
Yeah.
Quite often, the harder you're trying to hit it, a number of people, I'm not going to say this is just a blanket statement of truth, but a number of people definitely hit it straighter the harder they're trying to hit it. And I'm not saying some ridiculous John Daly, you're just swinging it, but the hardest you can possibly swing that you feel like is reasonable is probably the way you should be swinging it.
For sure. And how much do you see distance, like if you add 10, someone adds 10 yards, like how much does that help them, or 20 yards?
20 yards is 2 shots around.
Is it really? So is it basically every 10 yards?
I mean, it changes based on handicap and stuff. You know, it's hard. Again, it's just hard to make blanket statements in golf that 100%. You would actually stand behind. Yeah. But it's pretty clear that 20 yards is at least 2 shots. Wow. And so, if, you know, I mean, again, 20. I do believe that everybody who has not actually speed trained or thought about hitting it further, everyone has 20 yards they could easily gain.
100%.
I mean, easily. And, you know, I'm not even talking about like training that hard, just like consciously going out there and trying to hit the ball harder. Just everyone's got that. And now if you are trying to speed train and you have done a little bit of work, I do believe the majority of players, the average player, can pick up 40 yards without too much difficulty. I mean, again, going back to Lou, I think that guy picked up about 40 yards over a 2-year period, which again is just an astronomical amount of distance. I couldn't pick that up, but I easily could pick up 20. You know, if I'd stopped having surgeries.
Yeah. That definitely helps.
Yeah.
So I'd love to go back to Michael. I didn't realize you were working with him. So with Michael, so if we look at,
I don't want to say I'm not working with him. He just
that he's using the system. Yeah, that he's using the Decade app. Like when you look at the top NCAA guys versus guys, like what are some of the stats that stick out to you that you're seeing, and have they changed over the last decade, and as the game has quote unquote evolved, as we're told in the media?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because one thing I'm trying to do better is not just jumping into an answer. Technically, I don't know. I don't look at it that closely anymore. It's like once someone solved 2 + 2 = 4, I don't need to keep looking at it anymore.
100%.
And so it's just not something I need to constantly look at to reinforce what's going on. I just know, obviously, everyone's hitting it harder and further.
Right.
And so that's the number one thing that I would say. I would say that everybody on tour is understanding and focusing more on the fact that speed is the most important component of putting. Mm-hmm. And I'll have people all the time be like, well, what if you hit it 90 degrees offline? I'm like, well, I assume you're trying. Like,
assume you're not having a seizure.
I assume you're freaking trying to not be an asshole.
Yeah.
But if you go out, if the listener goes out tonight and just take and put a ball mark and go 20 feet away and roll a putt, and, you know, it's easier to do with a buddy, and then just kind of move it off to the side. I want you to create how wide your shot pattern is and how deep your shot pattern is with a putter from 20 feet. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you it will be 3 to 6 times deeper than it is wide, meaning it'll be 4 feet deep and probably 9 or 12 inches wide, if that. If we just find the straightest putt we can. Mm-hmm. And so once you think about a putt with any break on it whatsoever, if you hit it too soft, it starts breaking sooner. If you hit it too hard, it starts breaking later. So even given the identical read and start line, your shot pattern becomes really wide because of your speed control. Mm-hmm. And so the worse your speed control is, and again, you'll see it all the time. I saw one of them yesterday at the NCAAs from a guy that was playing for a Decade team, and he just rolled this putt up there from like 5 feet, and it just barely kind of petered out and caught the bottom lip, and the announcer's like, you just got to hit that harder. I'm like, you still have to have the right line. He made the hole as big as physically possible. He probably just didn't quite put enough read on it. I mean, again, I'm not saying that I would say hit it 6 inches by from 5 feet is optimal, but it's not much more than 12 inches by. Yeah. I mean, we want to hit it with a little bit more speed so it holds it line. But once you get outside 15 feet, you have to be leaving so many putts short. I mean, this is just I just got in this argument for like 2 weeks straight on Instagram. If we use my microphone as the hole, and from that 20 feet, we've got a 4-foot putt, a 4-foot distance control distribution, mm-hmm. It's going to be normally distributed for the most part. Mm-hmm. And we've now centered the inner 50% of our shot pattern 18 to 24, 30 inches past the hole. We've made the hole really small for the majority of our putts, and we will have 4-footers coming back, so we will 3-putt. If I take that shot pattern and shift it to where it's 1 foot short to 3 feet long, identical shot pattern, I've now made the inner 50% of my shot pattern the hole as big as possible for. I've traded this 4-footer out for a 1-footer. Like, it's hard for people to wrap their head around, but Brad Faxon left 16% of his putts from 16 to 20 feet short. That's 1 in 6. It's an incredible amount of putts. Brad Faxon, the best putter, arguably, that's ever played golf, from 16 to 20 feet, left 1 in 6 putts short. But he also, it's again, this is what's hard to appreciate, is leaving 25% of your putts short from that distance for most amateurs will actually make you make more putts. You'll make more of those 16 to 20 footers by leaving 20-ish% short.
Just because of the distribution.
You've made the hole so big for that inner 50%. Yeah. And people just can't wrap their head around it. So not only are we going to 3-putt less, we're going to make more putts. And that's definitely one thing you see on the PGA Tour now, is these guys are just creeping the ball up to the hole from, let's call it 15 to 30 feet, putts that feel kind of makeable, but also, I mean, the 15-foot make rate on tours is 22%. 22%? I need my glasses. You're not going to make many. And that's okay. We want to get really good at 2-putting from 20 to 40 feet. If you can do that, the game is really easy.
Well, especially as you said, the shot distribution was it higher from 150 yards, higher likelihood to be 40 feet? Than
outside 40 feet than inside 10 feet.
Yeah. So is that where you see a lot of on the green, is if you can get really good with that 20 to 40 foot range?
That 20 to 40 footer, just to where you're just automatic for 2 putts. Yeah. It's just such an advantage. I mean, it's so huge. And this is, again, if your line is terrible, okay, we're going to need to work on our stroke, obviously, but that takes years to improve.
Right.
You will be stunned when you go out to the putting green and just run. We've got 3 different speed drills in the Decade app that, again, I literally took a picture of Maverick McNeely at the PGA last week, just using the drill, right? I mean, it's the main foundation speed drill is one that I created. And then Maverick, when I was working with him through college and his first few years on tour, he modified it to be, better from 5 to 15 feet. And that guy led strokes gained putting 2 years ago. I mean, it's just, here are the drills, the best putters. I mean, Max Grazerman finished second in strokes gained putting last year, and he just wears out these drills that are focused on speed control. And again, what's funny is when someone has a bad putting round, they go to the putting green and they work on their stroke 100% of the time. Nobody goes and does speed drills. Yeah. Like, no one goes and does speed drills. They set up these crazy practice stations and just grind on trying to make their start line 0.01% better. Like, good luck. It's always speed.
So what was the argument outcome? Putt for show, drive for show, putt for dough.
That is false. I mean, the driver's the most important club in the bag by a mile. And what's hard is strokes gained approach seems like it's more, but there's only 14 tee shots around, and there's typically 20 or more approach shots around. You're going to get 2 on a couple of the par 5s. Right. Then you've got the other par 4s and 3s. So when a statistic is cumulative in nature, it feels more important. But the driver, and there's also a bit of a survivorship bias on the PGA Tour, whereas, man, if you don't drive it well, you lost your card.
Yeah.
Like, everyone on tour drives it so good. I shouldn't say everyone. Out of 200 players on tour, 150 would blow your mind. Even the guys that are minus 0.3, you would watch them and be like, this dude is below average. I mean, it would blow most people's mind how good these guys are off the tee. A lot of that circles back to the other argument that I've just died on the hill of, is shaping the driver one direction. Pretty much everyone on tour now understands the importance of just owning your stock shot and literally never deviating from it. You will find very few good drivers of the golf ball on tour that actually try to work the ball both ways, unless it's an extraordinarily specific situation. Right. Where, if they fade it, which most players that hit it hard are going to tend to fade it. there's going to be a very specific situation where they may try to ride the wind with a draw. But this is also what's hard is, sure, every once in a while you might catch it, high toe, bomb draw that goes further. But on average, you're going to also double cross a few, just flares up into the wind.
Yeah.
I don't even believe in that situation. On average, we're going to hit it further. So the only spot I would ever try that is like, you know what, wind's off the right, I fade my driver. If I just hit my stock drive, it's a par 5, I'm not going to be able to get there for whatever reason, carrying a hazard or whatever. That's a spot where if there's no trouble right, I might try to draw it simply because, well, I'm probably laying up once I double cross fan this up into the wind. But if I do happen to catch it on the high toe and get an extra 20 yards, not because it's really going any further, just because of the dynamics of interacting with the wind wind up better, I might try that. But it's just my overall average drive, I do believe, would be less even in that scenario where I occasionally do unload on one.
And what about the moving the golf ball with approach shots? Is it the same? Does the same apply or no?
I do think that even on tour, guys tend to do that too much. But you can do that because you can move ball position. Yeah. So if I'm a guy that fades my irons, I can move my ball position back a couple of inches with my 7-iron, and that's going to artificially shift my path to the right without me even feeling like I'm changing my swing just because of hitting down on it more.
Yeah.
So that's a scenario where, again, personally, I don't ever. I mean, this is also what's funny is people are like, just to be great, you've got to work the ball both ways. I'm like, I played to a +5 last year over 20 tournament rounds. I don't know what I'm not going to argue that I'm great at golf, but I'm pretty damn good at golf.
Yeah.
Am I on the PGA Tour? No, but if there's anyone that's just an amateur at your club that would look at me like, well, he's not great at golf. Like, how great are we talking about here? Like, sure, right. I'm not on tour. I'm also 52. Yeah. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't think it's necessary.
And then from a approach standpoint, so this is another statistical thing I've always heard is like lay up to a number versus go for it.
Again, data is very clear on that. Yeah. Oh, gosh, I got some water on me. I look like I got shot. I've been watching The Sopranos. I look like I got shot here. No, I mean, again, maybe to a front hole location, if the greens are firm, you could consider laying it back a little bit. But I would still argue now our distance control is getting worse the further we lay it back. So I should, even with the front hole location and firm greens, I should probably be trying to land it a little bit past pin high anyways. Like, my ultimate target really shouldn't change, like where I want the ball to finish. Shouldn't change that much. But the further I lay it back, by definition, the wind has more time to impact my golf ball's flight. And so I'm just allowing more variables to come in. Now, if you're someone who has a true 70-yard yip or whatever, like I did a video a month ago with Rick Shields. I didn't realize he actually does have a straight-up 70-yard chip yip. And, I'm like, okay, well, you just proved to me you knifed 3 straight over this green. Luckily, the first one was caught by the bunker. Otherwise, he was 4 under through 7 as we were playing. And I thought the first one was out of bounds. It was kind of a hidden shot. And then he just knifed the next 2 that were for sure out of bounds. I'm like, you're about to make an 11 on this hole after cruising in at 4 under. Okay, Rick, maybe I would have laid you a little bit further back. But honestly, all I would have done there is I would have shifted his target a little bit further right. It was kind of in this little back left peninsula. Yeah. This isn't your shot, dude. This is not good for you. Let's just go 20 feet right of this pin, which would have opened up how much more distance control, room for margin he had. It's like we're just surrendering here. It's like surrendering in blackjack. Like, I just don't like the situation. You happen to throw out an ace when I happen to press my bet up beyond my comfort zone. Can I just have half my money back, please? It's not a good idea, like by mathematical definition, but you can take a little bit of pain off the board. That's what we should have done on that 70-yard shot with Rick.
For sure.
It's a great, honestly, for the listeners, I got nothing to sell on this. It's a free video on YouTube. If you go to Rick Shields, Shiels, he's the biggest YouTuber there is, and search, it's about 2 weeks ago. It's titled, I shot my best score ever with a little secret help, something like that. Yeah. It's by far the best YouTube video I've ever been a part of. I think it would really be something good for the listeners.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you've obviously been able to, you're obviously in the data, you get to you're working with top players. You yourself are a good player. As you think back to like when you started the journey to where you're at now, what, obviously the drive for show, putt for dough was a myth. What are some of the other kind of bigger ones that have surprised you, or even some that that you find yourself still having to argue about?
One of the big ones is this idea of trying to favor a side of the fairway to gain an angle into the flag. Mm-hmm. That one's one that, again, it's kind of like distance. It's interesting. We needed data to prove this point, but we've got a 70-yard wide shot pattern. Let's just pretend this microphone is 40 yards wide and it's the fairway. Yeah. Well, if my shot pattern is 70 yards wide, if I try to favor a side, I'm just going to be moving the outer edge of my shot pattern into trouble, most likely. At some point, there's something in the way. Yeah. But if I just aim at the middle of the fairway, the right side of my shot pattern is going to have that angle. The left side of my shot pattern isn't going to have a great angle, but it's always better to be in the fairway than in the rough. I don't even care if you've got the better angle. And what's, again, interesting is running the data on it. PGA Tour players, when they have the air quotes angle to the flag, their scoring average actually goes up compared to when they're on the other side of the fairway. And the only thing that I can logically make sense out of that is they think, okay, this is a green light situation, and they play more aggressive than the shot should allow, just because they're telling themselves, I'm in a grade A position here. And it's like, yeah, but you're still 160. I mean, like, what are we talking about? It's just the scoring average from 165 on the PGA Tour in the fairways, where they average 3 shots to hole out. I don't care if you're 140 with the angle. Par's technically still a great score, but that all requires starting to think about these things in fractions of shots instead of whole shots. One thing that I do think is interesting with golf is we're all trained to think a birdie gains you 1 shot and a bogey loses you 1 shot. And obviously doubles and eagles are just more than that. But if the scoring average on a hole in a tournament you're playing is 4.3 and you make a 5, you didn't lose a shot. You lost 0.7 shots. If you make a par, you technically gain 0.3 shots. The definition of the winning score is the lowest average. Yeah. I mean, it's literally the definition of the winning score. It's the lowest average. I don't care if it's 1 round or 20 rounds. The lowest average score wins the tournament. And so technically we can break that up. We arbitrarily break a 72-hole tournament up into 18 holes. There's no reason you couldn't break that up into 72 one-hole tournaments. And if I beat the average score on this one hole, even if the winning score is 20 under, if I make a par, I have advanced myself closer to that winning score. Again, it's hard to wrap your head around, but on the PGA Tour, the winner every week is 12 to 14 shots clear of the field average. I don't care if the field, when Cameron Smith won the Tournament of Champions however many years ago, he was 14 shots clear of the field average and he was 34 under par. When Zach Johnson won the Masters, and all the announcers like to talk about he didn't go for a single par 5. Well, when DJ won the Masters, he was 20 under. You're not going to get to 20 under when you don't go for a par 5. The year Zach Johnson won, not going for a par 5, the winning score was 1 over.
Yeah.
Zach Johnson's not winning a shootout at Augusta. He won it because it was miserable conditions and cold and everything else. But you know what? He was 14 shots clear of the field average. Wow. So that's 35 shots difference in score, but they were both relative to the competition in the exact same spot. So just circling back to this idea, if I make a 4 on a hole with a 4.3 average, I don't care what the winning score is. I've taken 0.3 of that 14 I need to accumulate. Yeah. There you go.
Put it in your back pocket, moved on. So what is Scottie doing? I mean, I'm sure you've gotten this question a number of times. What is Scottie doing week to week so well?
What do you mean?
Scottie Scheffler.
Better?
From a statistical standpoint. I mean, he literally does everything better. But anything that you're seeing differently maybe than like Tiger did or other players when they've had dominant runs, or is he just doing it more consistently?
So again, this is where I do get myself in a lot of trouble, like air quotes, taking credit for everybody's great play. Yeah. This one really is that way because I know Scottie, but I've never actually worked with him, even though he's a Dallas guy. Yeah. But Ted Scott, I did work with for 5 years while he was with Bubba. Yeah. And when Scottie hired him, I was like, Ted, I've looked at a lot of Scottie's images in Tracker 2 with where he hits shots, and I just think he does a lot of dumb stuff out there. Yeah. If you can tighten him in and get him thinking without saying decade, if you can tighten him up and get him playing golf the way you know it's to be played, he's a lot better than his results. Now, I did not think he would win the first week and then just continue
Just go
doing what
from
he's
there.
done.
Yeah.
But it's just that train of, I do think that, look, when I caddied for Zalatoris when he won the Texas Am and US Junior, I was just laughing. I'm like, this isn't fair. Like, I actually legitimately felt bad at the US Junior. Davis Riley lost in the finals the previous year to Scheffler, and then Will beat him in the finals again. And I'm like, I can't imagine being a junior golfer and losing in the finals of the US Junior back-to-back years. And I literally felt kind of, Davis is a super nice guy.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad because I'm like, this isn't a fair fight. Will is at least as good at you as at golf, and I'm just playing him like a 45-year-old
Right.
adult who's researched the scoring side of the game more than anyone on the planet at that point. And I do think that Tiger just had to be laughing, like, because we could listen to what some of the other kids and caddies were talking about doing, and I'm just like, that is a terrible idea. And I do believe that Tiger had to have the same feeling out on the PGA Tour of, wow, what are you talking about? That is an absurd thing to think you can pull off right here in this situation. And so again, a guy like Scottie, where I think like if he just finished 37th that first week, if he just happens to not get off to the start he does with Ted, it could literally change everything. But going out with Ted that first week, Ted saying, here's what we're going to do. Just trust me on this. Just listen to what I got to say and let's see what happens, and him win. And then Scottie just saying, I'm all in. And again, I'm making up that's what happened here, but like, I know that's what happened on at least half of the equation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, like, to Zalatoris, like, luckily he won that first week at the Texas Amateur. And I mean, God bless the kid. There were so many times when he would look at me like, that's a stupid target. I can play more aggressive than that. And I'm like, dude, just trust me on this.
Yeah.
And even myself, I was like, am I doing this right? Because that feels really, really conservative. But that's what the math says. And so let's just go with it. And it's just crazy looking back at it, how he just fully bought in day one. And then once you have success immediately, like, well, now you just know that's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just run the script over, and it's like counting cards. I mean, it really is. It's all poker, math, and expectation. Circling back to Como and I running so many math simulations in poker, that's all Decade is poker, mindset, and math.
So before we jump, I do want to jump into the acronym and just for everyone, just as we wrap at the end. But for the Scottie, you said you had been looking at his shot patterns and saying like, hey man, he's just making dumb decisions. What were some of the, what were kind of the trends or the things that you were seeing before Ted got with him, and then now that you see, if you looked at that,
lots of bogeys from inside 150.
Really?
Just trying to play way too aggressive with your wedges, trying to force birdies. Oh man, I got. Bo Hostler's another guy that I've worked with for a few years when he first turned pro. And I was out with Kramer Hickok at the Byron Nelson, walking with Spieth and Bo and Kramer. And I'm not going to talk to Jordan or Bo; they're not my players. I'm just talking with Kramer. But Bo is a really smart, introspective guy, and he asked Kramer afterwards, like, "Who is that, and what's he talking about?" He kind of explained it to him. We wound up getting together, and with Bo specifically, like, you just don't realize in college the pins are 5 or 6 yards from the edge of the green, and you're used to firing at them from 120, which is kind of correct. But now they're 3 or 4 yards from the edge of the green, and it doesn't seem like that big of a difference. And you're so programmed to firing at flags, you don't realize it's just a time or two around. You kind of get short-sighted a little bit more than you should have. And again, this is where it's not even about just optimizing greens and regulation. It's even the greens that you miss. Instead of being 7 yards off the green to a pin that's 4 yards on the green, you're only 4 yards off the green to a pin that's 4 yards on the green. That 3 yards is huge in your up and down save rate. So again, you're just making the same amount of birdies. It's just from different shots within your shot pattern, but the up and downs become easier. Just everything about it. So, circling back to Scottie, he just used to get into some weird spots where it's like, you're better than that. You're better than hitting that shot from 160 and winding up in that completely dead spot. And now you're trying some stupid flop shot because you don't want to make bogey and you leave it short, and then you don't get it up and down. You walk off with double. I mean, that's everyone that's listening does that probably every time they play. And it's like, even at the tour level, let's stop doing that. I mean, again, it's just, I think I said it earlier, it's easier to intentionally not make bogey than it is to intentionally make birdie. You just have to trust the birdies are going to be there. and they will magically just be there. And that's, people say all the time, like, well, how am I going to make a birdie if I'm not trying to? Just trust me on this one. Go. If there were no pins in the green, you would still make birdies. Like you would accidentally hit it close to some. You would accidentally get it up and around a green on a par 5 and 2. Like hit a par 5 into, not just even up and around it. Like you are going to accident. Birdies are pretty much happy accidents. Avoiding bogey is something you can do with intention.
So speaking on the intention, I want to get in just to the acronym. You've mentioned expectations a couple times. What does decade stand for, and kind of walk through just the general system for everybody and how it's.
Yeah, I mean the acronym is just D distance, E expectations, C correct target, A analyze, D discipline, and E execute. And that's just really the 6-step process of choosing your target. We start off with, how long is the shot? That's going to be telling us, for starters, basically how big our shot pattern is. Mm-hmm. I do think that the expectation step is extraordinarily important. I didn't let Zalatoris, I probably caddied 100 rounds for Will while he was an amateur, and I told him on every single shot what his PGA Tour expectation was, because it just lightens the load. When you're 100 yards in the fairway, I'm like, hey, dude, it's 2.8 from here. Like, really? Yeah. Like, I don't need you to make that many birdies. I just need you to not give them away with bogeys.
Yeah.
Then C, correct target, is when we start actually doing the decade math of how far are we going to be aiming from the edge of the green. Analyze is what is the adjacent hazard, what is the wind. I mean, there's just these process. I mean, again, I'm a big Tony Robbins nerd, and everything is a 6 or 7-step acronym. I got extraordinarily lucky that the first word I tried, decade, actually worked.
Yeah.
I've talked with a number of people that have done acronyms before, and they're like, that was your first try? I'm like, it took like 5 minutes.
And the URL was available?
You have no clue how lucky you are. And I'm like, I always thought I was, but I'd never actually thought about picking any other word in the dictionary and attempting. And the reason I chose decade was Will sent me a text that said, after the Texas Amateur, I'll never be able to thank you. You gave me 25 years of experience in 5 days. That's literally why I chose the word decade, just implying we're going to take decades off your learning curve.
Yeah.
And then D, discipline, is the discipline to actually aim at that target and try to hit it there. I actually think, looking back at my professional career, I probably picked decent targets, but then, as strange as this sounds, I didn't actually try to hit it there.
Yeah.
So the pin would be 4 yards from the right. I'm 180. You know what? I got to aim this thing like 10 yards out to the left. So I would. And then I would hope I push it.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're putting this wishy-washy, non-committed swing on it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the tour players that I've worked with, 100% of them say, oh, I do that every day. I do that like 6 times a day.
Yeah.
And so what's funny about it is by definition, the reason we're aiming away from the flag is because it's some semblance of a difficult shot. So we're aiming away from the flag on a hard shot, and then we're not committing to our actual target. That's where more outliers come from. Like, it's just circling back to, I'm surprised we needed distance, data to tell us about distance.
Yeah.
The tour players, and I laugh every single time, they're like, I've just always known that's dumb, but I've never taken the time to think it all the way through.
Yeah, never taken the time to do the math on it.
It's pretty easy to come to the answer, like, probably not a good idea to not try to hit it where I'm aiming.
Yeah. Probably going to generate some results I don't really want.
You've just got to trust it. Again, I talk about block practicing all the time, which is just hitting the same shot over and over and over on the range at the same target. And one of the important features of that is you're going to start learning, I missed my target 70% right. I need to adjust my aim. People always say, like, because we think of our body lines, some people think of body lines as aim, some people think of start lines, some people think of shape, some people think of where I'm actually trying to hit it. Golf is difficult because if I told you that I was aiming at a dartboard 6 inches right of the bullseye, I don't know darts, it's probably a terrible analogy for me to come up with, but like if I was trying to throw a bullseye, it'd be like, well, why are you aiming 6 yards right? Well, I usually 6 inches, I usually throw it 6 inches left of where I'm trying. It's like, well, then you need to work on your aim.
Yeah.
It's just not how you do it. And so you got to learn how to center your shot pattern over your target on the range. And then when you get out on the course and you've got that decade target that says 10 yards left of the flag, I don't need to hope I will push it. By definition, I will push it half the time. Mm-hmm. And so you don't need to do that. It's going to happen. And again, circling back to just de-discipline, and then execute is going through your pre-shot routine. I talk about meditation a lot. The reason I think meditation is important is because we're looking for these wandering stray thoughts that aren't very productive.
Yep.
You've never once sat on a range and thought, don't miss this left. But then you get up on 18T at Sawgrass and you're like, well, don't go left. Well, a meditation practice is going to help you recognize that thought. And, hey, I got it. That's why I'm aiming 35 yards right of the water.
Yeah.
Centering my shot pattern 35 yards right of the water because I don't want to go left. Now there's no reason to think don't go left anymore. Now we're just hitting putting our swing on it, committed swing.
Right, exactly. Well, Scott, thank you so much for all your time today. This has been, I honestly would keep you on here for another 4 hours, but I know you're busy. What's the best way for people to get involved with Dick? I know you have a couple different programs, kind of an entry level and then kind of the go all the way, right?
Yeah, they're really the same product. It's just for foundations. I slow down how quickly I give you the content. Mm-hmm. I do think that if you're the kind of person that is intrigued at all by a golf stats and strategy app, you're going to love it. If that sounds remotely interesting to you, you're going to love it. If you're on the fence, I don't know about that, it may or may not be for you. But if it remotely sounds interesting, and then the reason foundations, I slow down the content is because the people who actually buy are what self-prescribed data nerds, mm-hmm. and they're just going to binge watch all of the content and not really ingest it at all. Yeah. So I slow it down to where you get about a sixth of the content every 3 weeks, instead of with the elite version, you just get it all on day one. So yes, Foundations is designed for the slightly worse, less experienced player. But that's only because I want them to take the content in slower. It's the same content. Right. It just takes you 6 months to get it. There's other things like a more robust stats portal that you work into. You get free yardage books within the app, but you get more with the elite version. That really is just a function of cost.
For sure.
Again, I really hate saying it because it's my product, but it really, really helps you figure out how to stop wasting shots on the course.
100%. We've seen many of our clients use it and do very, very well with it. Michael would be one of them. he's hoisting a trophy now.
My canned joke on it is if you feel like you should have shot lower every single time you play, you're either not as good as you think you are, or you made mental and strategic mistakes. It literally can be nothing else. You can't just keep getting unlucky year after year. 100%. And most of it's probably a little bit of both for you.
And I think on the physical side, we always say don't guess, assess and figure out what it is you actually need to do when you go to the gym and actually have a plan. It's no different on this side of things. To your point, if you're going home and be I should have played better, I shouldn't have, well, why did you make the bogey? Assess that, figure out why, and then do something about it.
Well, I just remember having this feeling in my 20s when I was playing professionally of, I would do something stupid and then I would get mad for 30 minutes and I'd be if I could just go back 30 minutes, I would do that differently. And I thought that every single day. And this is Sam Harris, back to meditation. Sam Harris has an app called Waking Up. That's the one I suggest everybody do. I just think it's the best by an absolute mile because of how he trains you to bring it out into your day. But he's got a way that he says, he's like, no, you wouldn't. You would make the same mistake a billion times in a row unless you learn a new skill to stop doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's when you think of it that way, I'm not going to just magically stop doing dumb stuff. You have to learn a new skill, and that's what Decade, at this point, it's just a living diary of all the dumb stuff I've done in my career and witnessed in my career. And it's you can go try to figure this out on your own, or here it is right here for you.
Yeah, just accelerate the time. I mean, I always think of learning I talk with my team all the time. I said, learning is your ability that, given the same environment, you choose a different behavior.
Yeah.
that definition that you learned something.
And importantly, again, in my 20s, we used to laugh about just all the dumb stuff we did. And I think looking back at it, I don't know this to be true, but I think looking back at it with hindsight, I felt like I just needed to get physically and mechanically better to stop making that bogey from 120.
Right.
It never dawned on me you know what, dude, I get it. It's a gap wedge here, but maybe you should aim about 3 or 4 yards right of this flag. Just give yourself a little bit of tolerance for mistake. I know I'm a professional golfer, though. I got to be swashbuckling and stuffing it. No, it's better to avoid the dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it's a leap of faith, just like leaving putts short and trusting you're actually going to make some. it's a leap of faith to trust that the birdies are actually going to be there. But some of the teams that are still in the match play right now are decade teams. And one of the things that one of them does is they do qualifying where they don't count birdies and better.
Oh,
And what's
really?
wild about it is they only count the over par holes, and the scoring averages always drop on those days because you're still going to, if you hit it to 15 feet, we still got to see if you two putt it.
Right.
They still make some of them. On par fives, it's actually best if you can get it up and around the green. Just because I'm trying to not make bogey, doesn't mean I should just lay it up to 100. I should still get it up and around the green. You're still going to make birdies. The scoring average literally drops for the players while scoring, just thinking I don't want to. I'm only counting over par holes.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty wild, man.
Still
I
make
mean,
birdies.
there's just a number of things that are very intuitive and obvious. Like I say, this is common sense. It is once I told it to you.
Yeah, once you told.
There are a number of things also that it's like, wow, that's wild. There was a college golfer on the PGA Tour now. When he was in college, they did qualifying, without pins. They teed off the groups 30 minutes apart, so you couldn't see the group in front of you where they were on the green or anything. And the guy hit a hole-in-one with a 4-iron.
No way.
He said they hit the ball, landed on the green. He just went back and put the club in the bag, and all of a sudden the ball just disappeared. And he's just like looked at everyone like, does that count? Like, yeah, technically.
It definitely counts, yeah.
It definitely counts, man, but it's pretty sketchy. It's kind of a gray area for sure. Hole-in-one with a 4-iron with no flag.
Little asterisk. But
Yeah.
hey, Scott, so where's the best place for people to follow you, to connect with you personally, and then also obviously Decade?
Decade _ golf on Instagram. Luckily, I finally grew a brain and punted Twitter. And decade.golf is where you can go find and buy the product. It's where I've got the most options to upgrade or extend your account depending on anything. And it's better than going through the App Store for sure. So awesome. Decade.golf will get you where you want to go. And I put a bunch of stuff out there on Instagram, and I keep on, I'm finicky with YouTube. I keep on thinking I'm going to make more content. And I'm just like, I don't really care to.
That's awesome. Well, we'll make sure everyone listening that we'll put all that in the show notes for you, so it's easy to find. But definitely go check out Decade. It is 100% worth it and going to help your golf game. So, Scott, thank you for hanging out with me here today. Really appreciate your time, being so generous with that, and everyone else listening. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you on the next episode.